My name's Whitney and I'm a pre-service teacher at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and today I'm going to be talking about how we can embed, as teachers, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives into the classroom. So first off, we'll talk about why we should be embedding these perspectives. So the first and most important thing would be to adhere to those policies, so the Australian curriculum which was made from the Alice Springs Education Declaration, the goals within that. So the first goal, promoting excellence and equity, and the second goal for all students, all young Australians, to become confident and creative individuals and to make them active and informed members of our community. And there is a commitment to action in there specifically for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, and it's for them to reach their potential. So similar to this, our national Close the Gap report, there's two goals. So it's to halve the gap for Indigenous children in reading, writing and numeracy, and to close the gap between attendance between Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. So not only from those policies, another big part of it for me is general Australian history. So it's a reversal of those dominant discourses such as whiteness, settler nationalism, monoculturalism, and then there's that compensatory education approach where the attention is directed to students and the family of Indigenous students when there is a deficit of some sort, rather than at the school system and how we can change it as teachers so that we create a supportive space for all of those students to feel belonging intellectually, emotionally and socially. So I reached out to my friend who is from Elora in far north Queensland. His mum is still there. She works in a remote school in Elora. She's been there for 35 years or so. And I asked him a few questions because I believe collaborating with community about their perspectives as students in schools has really helped me to kind of get an approach of how I would want to do it in the classroom. So some good points that he gave me were that he said that introducing as a teacher to support those social and emotional developments, he said as later primary school age starts to come about, to introduce that drinking and drug awareness for children at an earlier stage, and the effects of the body, the effects of our emotions, and socially how it can kind of prevent us from having good relationships with ourselves and others. So to bring that in further, and he also said he didn't think there were enough cultural outings highlighting in heritage. So he said that rather than religious studies, it would be great to do cultural studies in the school, and whether you're doing that all the time or you had a set time each week to look back at that. He also said that rather than a structured leader, he would prefer the teacher to be a role model or a mentor. And he didn't have a stepdad in his life or a dad, so he really clung close to those men and women, but mainly men, instructors and teachers he had in his life. And he said that they gave him many social skills and things like that he wouldn't have had otherwise. He also made a note and wanted me to specify this, that the teachers that he had were not Indigenous, they were actually Caucasian. So looking back at it now, he didn't have any Indigenous teachers. So it is possible, you just need to really be committed to making that difference for the children. So he said that he didn't experience any storytelling, outdoor learning or Indigenous community members coming into the school, as I asked him, but he said that providing the sporting opportunities were great, but if he could have his time again, that would have helped a lot, having that storytelling. He also said he thinks teachers would benefit from experiencing cultural events for themselves. He said he believes that without experience firsthand in the culture, how can you really deliver it authentically yourself? So that was some interesting points from him. And he also gave me a few resources there as well. So it's always good to reach out because you never know who has resources that you can use in the classroom. So how can we do this? How can we support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students intellectually, emotionally and socially, while also creating an environment for all students to feel comfortable and it can benefit everyone? So intellectually, the best way to do this is feedback and critical reflection. Having that feedback between students, doing that critical reflection about how engaged they were, how motivated they were, if they were resilient, what content works well or what doesn't, and keeping note of that and really using the feedback to inform your practice. Embedding the 8 ways pedagogy. So I found that this is really helpful, and it's got the diagram here. So you've got all of the 8 different ways of embedding that pedagogy throughout. And a lot of it that I think is really good is telling a story, because everyone can do that as a teacher, as students, as peers, and really getting that storytelling into the curriculum to get them thinking about how other people felt, relating that to themselves. So that comes down to Indigenous context as well. When you're talking about HAS, you're looking at history within their culture. When you're doing science and you're looking at biology, you're linking the land to the language, which also ties to English, the language of the traditional area. You've got the flora and the fauna that you can be talking about. Creating those high expectation relationships will really encourage them to think in the classroom as well. So don't give them that deficit discourse. You're meant to be encouraging them just as much as you would any other student. And lastly, my favourite one, I believe, is multiple intelligences, so by Gardner. That naturalistic and outdoor learning, and that sporting learning, that kinesthetic learning, like my friend mentioned before as well. So getting them to think in that classroom and extending that learners, bringing in those different types of learning, I think that would benefit all students, not just Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. Emotionally, we can help with their self-confidence by questioning. So questioning and conversing, giving them praise and identifying their strengths rather than their deficits. So that questioning, is getting to know them, getting to know what their needs are, getting them to know what they want to be successful with, and helping them with that. To develop self-concept and efficacy, the corner activity. So there's a choose a corner activity where it's a simple activity, it's a social thing. You don't need to say much, you just need to move your body. So you just need to be going into a corner of the room which identifies your answer to a question. So it doesn't need talent, it's just about ideas and attitudes. And once they're in this space, they can see who is similar to them as well. So for self-worth, Indigenous visuals in the learning environment is really helpful, as they have affirmations and they can see that there is their language in the classroom. And for resilience, behaviour management system, and areas for self-regulation such as a calming box and corner. So having that opportunity for them to really reflect on their own behaviour. So I've actually made my own box up here, and it's got things like a slinky, it's got Lego, it's got a stress banana. It has different challenges with metal bars and everything like that. And within this box, I would actually be putting resources that are more Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander based. So I'd be putting, if they've got traditional balls or traditional games, put it in there as well. For social skills, role play would be a great strategy. So doing the role play, thinking about doing role play that they would resonate with. And then also Vygotsky's theory of social intelligence and interaction is to be pairing them in small group work. So getting them to learn with other students. And the other activity is inside and outside circle. So learning those Bennett's social skills like turn taking, active listening, etc. So lastly and quickly, as a pre-service teacher, I've reflected on my cultural beliefs. And as a child growing up in a farming community, a small community, I didn't really have much knowledge of other cultures, I guess. And I looked at my personal values after this and I went, I love freedom, I love relationships, helping others, honesty and growth. So that's really helped me to reflect on my own personal values and see that as a teacher, this doesn't discriminate against any other culture. It just means that I'm wanting to give to any student how I love feeling about myself with freedom especially. As a growth for this course, from the course that I've done in uni, I've learnt that it's not just about activities and strategies, it's about embedding the culture. It's got me more motivated, and it's also got me to feel more involved with community and learn about local place, especially as I'm moving to Cooktown in 2 years to teach there. My cultural standpoint is that we're living in 2020, and I believe that your beliefs match your action. And if you believe all students are important, then you'll treat them accordingly. Thank you.